once again, and welcome to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess for tonight's show, and as usual, we have a very special woman who is a tremendous contributor, not only to the Carson City area, but to the entire Northern Nevada area. But before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Carpenter Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, balsamic vinegar, and international teas, as well as Villa Basque, Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo. So join me now as we greet Alana Andrews-Ross. Alana, thank you so much for being here with us.
Very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Alana, I'm going to keep kind of a secret what you do here in the community because it does affect so many people in so many ways. But before we come to that surprise occupation that you do, tell us a little bit about yourself, please. Tell us where you grew up. Where were you born?
Actually, I was born in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Idaho, you're a Western girl by birth.
By birth,
okay.
But left when I was 5 and have not been back yet.
Oh, that's a long time. Why are you avoiding Idaho?
I'm not. I want to go back there.
Oh, yes, it's a beautiful state. It
yes,
truly is.
Yes.
So help us understand. Were you the only child in your family?
No, I wasn't the only child. As a matter of fact, I was the firstborn, the oldest, and I'm actually 9 years older than one brother, 7 years older than the other one, and 16 years older than my sister. So I've always had the nurturing kind of mother, taking care of people thing going on.
And we've talked about so many times in this program that when you are the oldest child, you're the first in the pecking order.
Yep.
And you never know how many more are coming, okay? A lot of responsibility and expectations fall on that first child. And I think that any parent, when that first one comes along, there is something unique, special about the position, about the child. Did you ever feel any kind of pressures on you because of being the oldest?
Because I was the oldest, and probably because I was a girl as well, the expectation was that I was my mom worked and my dad worked. They owned a business, so I took care of my brothers and my sister. And that was my responsibility.
Okay, and that's a biggie.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a biggie. Starting about what time did they trust you with the younger children, would you say?
Well, then I was 7 when my brother was born, so probably, I'm going to say about 10. Probably since I was 10, I've been taking care of somebody.
And that's a handful with a 3-year-old after you, okay? When they finally say, all right, here's your brother. He's 3 years old. Good luck.
And they meant that.
Okay, so where did the family move to after Idaho?
My brothers were born in Vallejo, California, and my sister.
All right. So how long did the family stay in California?
Well, my family's still there. As a matter of fact, I was the one that kind of moved up and moved out. And my mom has passed, and my dad, but my brothers still live there, and my uncles still live there. So we go back all the time and have family reunions and fun things.
So California has a very special feel, very special sense of memory for you.
Oh, yes, definitely.
What did you learn? Can you go back in your mind and remember some of those times that you were responsible for the children, the other children in the family? Did they ever test or challenge your authority as the older sister?
Are you kidding me?
Did they ever test the waters, so to speak?
Yeah, and I have to say too that not only was my brothers and my sister, but I was also responsible for my cousins, of which there was 4 of.
At the same time?
Oh, yeah, if they went out or something, you know. My mom and dad owned a pizza parlor and / bar. So they worked a lot, you know, and so I was kind of like the caregiver of all of them, kind of, yeah. They were.
Who was the most challenging out of those 7? You had 4 cousins plus brothers and a sister.
Yes.
And do you remember which one you really had to keep your eye on the most?
Oh, all of them. But
Okay, let me ask you this question. You have to be you have to be pretty clever and quick thinking, quick-witted, because kids can want to do different things at different times, and when they decide not to be a crowd, but to be individuals, that's a toughie. What do you remember doing that worked, that seemed to click, it seemed to bring everybody together? Was it food? Was it games? What did you do to food?
Definitely. Yeah, food, games, and one story that comes to mind is that my brother just loved animals and insects and you name it. And so when he was real little, he used to keep frogs in his pocket, live frogs.
Yep.
And I was sitting there watching TV or something, and I heard this click, 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 and I looked down, and there was about 8 frogs jumping around on paper.
Okay.
And I went, well, we don't want to know, but needless to say, he didn't do that again.
but he must have felt comfortable bringing those frogs around you, knowing that, this is not Mom telling me I can't bring them in the house or can't have them.
Yeah.
So
I wouldn't say I had the same authority as her, but
no,
yeah.
Children never do, and yet we're not in the shoes of those younger brothers or sisters. We're not exactly sure what they're thinking, how far they'll test that older sister. But it's a challenge. Were you ever, now that you're all grown, do you enjoy going back and talking about those other days, those other experiences?
Oh, absolutely. That's all we do. Love going to the family reunions and just talking about what happened then and there. And
you created tons of memories.
Oh, yeah. And we've never had a fight. Not my brothers, sisters, nobody. Never.
Really?
No, never. We just always have respect. Well, maybe when we were littler, but, since we've been adults, never had any problems at all.
We got our mouths washed out with soap by my older brother in our family because sometimes we couldn't behave with one another, my sister and I, and that straightened us up very quickly. We learned how to get along well. So after you left California, you struck out on your own. Where did you go? What was Alana into?
Well, I was married when I was 17.
Okay,
just
a young
18,
bride.
Right out
Of high school.
High school, right. Graduated in June and married in August. And I had been, I had 3 kids.
Which was not unusual.
No, that's what you did. You got married at. That's
right.
kind of what you did. Those were your choices, pretty much. And so then I had gotten divorced eventually. And so I was living in Vallejo, and I kind of had to start out as a waitress and work my through every kind of waitress thing, which I think is great for everybody.
It is.
It is really good for everybody. And ended up going to the peninsula. Had a friend who had a house there.
What does that mean, the peninsula?
Oh, San Mateo.
Okay.
Yeah. And my friend had a house there, and she said, why don't you move on? Get out of Vallejo, move on. And I did.
So how old were you at that time?
I must have been about 35.
All right. So quite a while after marrying at 17. Why do you think that so many teenage marriages, some seem to, they're childhood, high school sweethearts, and they last forever, 65, almost 70 years, and others collapse? Why do you suppose that is?
Well, with ours, we were just totally different people and just did not have a clue what we were doing, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
But my husband's daughter married her high school sweetheart when they were 17, and they're still together and extremely happy. So
How
I
many
think you
years?
have to be compatible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, compatibility.
Theirs is probably 20, 25 years because their son's grown.
All right.
So,
maybe even longer than that.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yes. I think that in high school, you're in such a framed-in environment, and the environment helps to take care of the relationships. It helps to promote them and helps to move them forward. Your friends all help. But when you graduate and you're on your own, so to speak, it's a different world.
Definitely.
And it's probably something that if there's not a strong foundational family extension, not only of relatives, but great friendships amongst the cousins, it's hard to find someone to talk to. It's hard to find someone that can maybe counsel, work through. And in those days, in the 1950s, early 1960s even, women's choices were far less than they are today. You could basically become a teacher, become a nurse, or get married. That was right. That's right.
Girls were almost raised. They were raised to think that that was the ultimate outcome for your life, would be to marry somebody right out of high school and start a life.
And quite often, in those years, if the marriage was bumpy, not really working out, you were still expected as a woman to maintain that stiff upper lip, carry that head high, and endure. And some of those marriages probably should have ended. I don't like divorce. I don't like to think about it even. But in some cases,
and absolutely.
It may
And
need
I
to
was one of
happen.
those cases. So I like to say I've never been happier since.
oh,
I never had a bad day since I got a divorce.
okay.
But that was my first husband.
Okay, and that's also, we can identify with that.
Yeah.
We make mistakes and we need to correct those mistakes and move on.
Right.
Move on. Okay, so how did you come into the head of this community service that you so effectively run and direct, which is what?
United Blood Services,
Yes.
the only nonprofit blood provider in northern Nevada.
Now, why is that such a very important statement?
Well, it's important to be nonprofit.
Okay.
Because the people that are profit, a lot of times they're not making a live unit like the plasma center. Let's say if they pay, then if they pay you, they're not using a live product. They're using that for testing or using it for collagen in your shampoos. Because the problem is, if you get paid for donating blood, then you don't get the money unless you go through the entire process. So you may have a tendency to lie on the paperwork or fudge the truth.
To get the money.
To get the money, exactly. And that's something that you don't want. So we're nonprofit and we don't give any incentive at all to donate blood. If we're giving out a t-shirt, everybody gets a t-shirt. Doesn't matter who you are. You don't even have to try to donate.
Okay.
Right, exactly. Okay. We have a lot of things to get people to come in, make it more pleasant for them, but everyone gets everything that we have.
Okay, so you're in a highly responsible position. And it has to be such that either your background in medicine or either your background in experience working with people or your sense of organization, what qualified you to come into this work, Alana?
I would say working my way up from Dairy Queen to, I actually was a gold trader at one time. And then I worked for a magazine. That's what brought me to Reno, Key Magazine. And then from there, I actually, this is going to sound funny, but I had a job with the bank and I got laid off. I had some layoffs and I was one of them. And I saw an ad in the paper and my eye just went to it. And in my heart, I believe in guidance.
Yes,
knew that was my job. And I knew that's where I was meant to be. And that was 22 years ago. And I put in for that job and I got it. And it was just, actually, they hired somebody else and then somebody else quit and then I got it. But it was my job. There's no doubt about that.
And that's so encouraging because, if I'm hearing you correctly, you did not have a college education?
No, I've had some college, but I don't have a degree.
Okay. And there are a lot of us out there who don't have a college degree. And I'm hearing you say, yes, I was a divorced woman. Did you have
Single
children?
mother.
Single mother?
3 children.
Wow, that's another challenge right there. That's another great responsibility. Got laid off, and you worked your way up through jobs, and something on that record, that work record of yours, had to have stood out.
And I think it was mostly community service because I did a lot of community service.
Okay.
A lot of clubs. A lot of talking to people, going to mixers, just meeting
Being
people.
a part of the
because I
community.
like people.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing, just liking people and talking to them.
Okay,
and
we're going to come back.
Okay,
in just
I'm
a second.
sorry.
No, you're fine. Because dealing with blood is different today than it was when I had my first blood transfusion in the 1980s. And we want to come back to how things have changed and why it was necessary. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
When a disaster strikes our region, will you be ready? Learn about sheltering in place. Since each emergency is different, make sure you plan for alternate routes away from your neighborhood. Plan meeting places and long-distance phone numbers if you are separated. Assemble food, water, medicines for at least 3 days, and a portable radio to stay informed. Remember, make a plan, assemble a kit, stay informed, be ready. For more information, contact your local emergency manager.
Wildfires can get big, really big.
But embers, as small as this, are the biggest threat to your home.
Embers can be carried more than a mile from the fire.
Even homes located blocks away from the actual flame front are still vulnerable to complete destruction.
Visit livingwithfire.info to get your ember awareness checklist so you can take action ahead of time to reduce the wildfire threat
Your home can survive.
when the embers arrive.
Thursdays at 7 p.m., Channel 15 for Carson City and Gardnerville, Channel 3 in Reno, Sparks, Fernley, Fallon, and Lake Tahoe.
Welcome back to the second half of Women to Women. Again, I'm Carol Paz, your hostess. We're with Alana Andrews-Ross, and we're going to get right back to Alana. But if you'd like us, take a look at our new Facebook page on facebook.com/women-to-women-NV. And you can follow all the interesting things that are happening on the program and with the women as well. So Alana, getting back,
Yes.
We were talking during the break time of how significantly certain lives that had the HIV virus, as we now know it, those lives played a key role in the change of how we look at receiving blood, the knowledge that we had to develop so that we did not have blood banks taking unhealthy blood. And it really changed a nation, but it took a long time for us to forget about all the fear and the unfairness that dominated the AIDS scare back in the 1980s. And the unfairness was how we heaped our ignorance and how we heaped our aversion to people that had AIDS that may have contracted it through some very innocent way, especially when hemophilias, like Ryan White,
Exactly.
the little boy from the Midwest, was given bad blood because he was a hemophiliac, and he had nothing to do with the process. But it made us recognize that today we live in a world that's been cleaned up a lot. Can you help us understand what is now being done when a person walks in to a blood center, a blood bank center, as a donor? What are some of the questions? And they need to be truthful. Why are those questions so important? Because what could happen if they don't tell the truth?
Well, we have a series of about 52 questions. They're based on risk behavior. They're based on travel, which is kind of a big one for us, and health. There's two people in the process, of course, one of them being the donor, one of them being the recipient, and we have to make sure that both of them are well cared for.
And that their blood types, of course, are going to be compatible with each other.
Oh, yeah, but that's actually, we just draw the blood from orders from the hospital, and the hospital makes sure that they get the O positive that goes with the O positive or the O negative or whatever. And they also cross type.
Which means what for our listening
Oh,
audience?
it means that we have it typed, and we have several things in place that will make sure that that the A positive is an A positive, and processes in place. And then once it has a label, and the hospitals order an A positive, that is directly taken to the hospital. Before it would be transfused, then they would take there's a little like tube of blood, and they would cross-match that to make sure that that's what it is.
Okay.
So there's lots of processes to make sure they don't get the wrong unit.
Yes. So what you're saying, in essence, is that today it's a highly sophisticated process.
Absolutely.
That both donor and donee are going to have to go through in terms of questioning. And the absolute truth is needed from donors.
Absolutely.
So your nonprofit status means that there's no payment, there's no money as an incentive for a donor to come in and give blood. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're a nonprofit, right? So the money goes back into research. We have a big research department and that sort of thing. As far as an incentive to our donors, if we give out T-shirts, we don't give out money, but if we give out T-shirts, then everybody gets a T-shirt.
Okay.
If we give out a cup or whatever. If we have a drawing, everybody goes into the drawing. So that there's no reason to say, well, I want a T-shirt, so I'm not going to tell them, that I did IV drugs or something. There's no
Right.
reason for that.
Okay.
Everybody gets it.
Okay, now you brought up a couple of ideas. Personal behavior, high-risk behavior, is something that you're going to be very careful in terms of questioning with. Also, you talked about travel. How do you mean travel is an issue that has to be dealt with carefully?
The world, it's unbelievable how many people travel nowadays.
Oh yes, yes.
Absolutely. Everything's global.
Yes.
Okay,
Which
not
makes
local.
our global community smaller, it seems.
Exactly. If you went to, let's say, Mexico, and you went on a cruise and you never got off the cruise ship, depending on what part of Mexico, let's say a tourist resort would be fine, then you would be okay to donate blood. If you got off the boat and decided to go see the ruins or the jungle or go to the next town over or whatever, then you would be deferred because of malaria risk for 1 year.
All right.
All right. So that's hard on us because so many people are. Costa Rica is a year as well. There's a lot of people that go on really great. We had one lady that came in the other day and she was only gone 5 days to Costa Rica.
But
that's a year deferral.
Right.
Because you cannot be too careful.
Okay.
Another
Go ahead.
really big one for us is if the people that have lived over 3 months or stayed over 3 months in England or really any of the European countries, they're deferred forever.
Forever? How so?
Because of mad cow.
Mad cow disease.
Because they won't take the chance, even though a unit, to my knowledge, has never been transfused from someone that got mad cow. The FDA, we're regulated by the FDA, and they're not going to take that chance. And we don't want them to take that chance.
That's right.
But now even whole families of people that are in Germany, that were in the military, their family and everyone, none of them can donate.
So that really,
at this point forever.
So that really cuts down on the number of possible donors for you.
And possibly great donors.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so if you have less donors available for a much needed blood supply in case of just regular hospitalization stays, just regular surgical stays, but a case of trauma, such as 9/11.
Exactly.
Okay. How do you appeal to the public? What do you do to get them to become aware that much blood is needed on a regular basis?
Well, see, that's the key word right there. You have to say current. It's not going to do you any good if we have a tragedy like we did for IHOP and like 2 weeks later, the air races.
Yes.
We went through an amazing amount of blood. And a lot of people came out to donate for those causes.
Okay.
But the truth is, if that blood had been on the shelves in the first place, and then it wouldn't have been ready. You can't wait for an emergency to happen. You have to keep the flow consistent because there is a shelf life on blood.
What is that shelf?
42 days.
So it's very short.
For a whole blood product, yes.
Very short.
Very short, yes.
42 days.
And platelets, that is used a lot for cancer victims, is only 5 days and 2 are lost in testing. So you only have a 3-day shelf life in that product. So it's tricky.
Okay, and I sense historically there must be some gaps here in the generations. I meet young people today who are in their 20s or their 30s. They're all young to me, okay?
Yeah, I get that.
But 18-year-olds coming out of high school. Do you have, and many of them are very patriotic. I mean, our military is a volunteer.
Definitely.
So I'm wondering, do we have the same number percentage-wise of young people giving blood as we did, let's say, during World War II, when there was a constant plea for... In World War II, it was very patriotic. It was the thing to do, and people just automatically donated blood for their community. They understood that. And there was not really a problem then with disease as it became a problem for the 80s.
And just so we're clear, you cannot get a disease from donating blood. Every needle is open in front of you every time. Of course, we only use one needle on each bag, and it's stored in front of you. So you can't get anything from actually donating blood.
Okay.
Which a lot of people think that you can. But we do have the saving grace for our teenagers, in our opinion, is that they do very high count high school drives.
All right.
So they might learn to donate in high school. If they go to high school and learn how to donate and get used to it, then they might go on. If they don't, it's not a consideration for them. Kind of, yeah. I would say less. We would like to get more young people interested in donating blood, but and in high school it's kind of a challenge each other, and it's a big blood drive, and they all get to hang out together, And
I think they feel very good after they've done this.
Yes.
Some of us still have that impression that if we give blood, we're going to faint. We're going to be off basis for the next 2 to 3 days, okay? And is that true or false?
Well, it's not impossible, but most people don't. What you want to remember when you're going to donate blood is eat well. It is not a blood test, although we do test the blood. It is not a fasting blood test. You want to eat well before, you want to eat well after, and you want to drink a lot of fluids, and really you should be fine.
Okay. I have often worked at the Red Cross in the blood banks, okay, on the days that people are coming in to volunteer. And I find fewer and fewer senior citizens coming in, although several still have that spirit inside of them to want to give blood. Why, can you help us understand why there are fewer senior citizens giving blood? Because they're really of that World War II era. They're of that patriotic spirit.
Sure, yeah. We have a lot of people that are in their 80s that are donating blood. However, the norm is that more people at that age are either using the products or taking too many medications or not healthy enough to donate blood. We have to take care of our people, so that they feel great about donating blood and physically great about donating blood. And that's one of the problems, because the spirit is there, you're right.
Yes. I'm wondering, you have 22 years of experience in all here in the Carson City area of running and managing and supervising this blood center?
Reno, I started in mobiles, so traveled all over northern Nevada, which was fabulous fun. And then in management, Reno, and then in Carson City for the last 5 years.
Well, Alana, your story is one that I'm hoping our viewers out there can identify with, because you are an answer to many women's prayers. You came up the hard way, okay? Nobody really helped you along in the sense of great financial aid, great financial sharing. So you took it step by step, and it can be done. And now I can sense that you're getting kind of anxious to retire a bit, okay? Or change.
You can sense that?
I can sense it. But it has to be a wonderful feeling to know that 22 years have been given, saving lives, making it safe for all of us out there to have blood transfusions. So I thank you, along with the public, for your work.
Thank you so much.
Okay, one last question. When that retirement bell goes off in your head, where are you headed? Quickly, we don't have too much time.
The couch. I don't know. I want to read. I got like 100 books to read, but, and then we're going to travel.
You might even consider a book, writing a book, because you certainly have met a lot of characters and a lot of great people along the way.
Ooh.
That's another thought for another day. Okay,
Goosebumps.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us, and I do want to thank our sponsors again, Carpin Nevada LLC and Villa Bass Delling Cafe, home of Pete's famous Bass chorizo. So until we see you next week, have a good evening, stay well.
Thank you.